What's up, guys, and welcome back to Heist Studio. And today I wanted to take you through a tour of all of my guitars. It's a lot. I had to sit there and think about it. I actually had to get out a notepad and kind of go through and be like, okay, what guitars did I have when? Because I wanted to get it in order. I don't know, it feels important to tell the story and the history of me traveling through the guitars. So I wanted to kind of walk through all of the different guitars that I've had, and I have almost all of them. I've only actually sold 3 of the guitars that I've owned, and all for pretty good reasons, so I'm not too sad about missing some of those. So getting into it, before we start pulling out guitars and playing, I started playing guitar on an Epiphone Les Paul Special 2 that is still around. It's at my dad's house. And my dad bought that out of the blue. We were at a Best Buy getting a printer when I was like 14, 8th grade. And they were trialing like a Guitar Center section in Best Buy, and the Seattle Best Buy that was by our house had that setup trialed out. And Dad and I wandered over, and he points at an Epiphone Les Paul and a Fender Starcaster or Squire Strat or something and goes, "What's the difference between these?" And I'd been playing drums for like 5 years at the time or whatever. I was able to go, well, like that one's the AC/DC one because it's got the block pickups, the humbuckers. And that one's more like the bluesy one because it's got the single pickups. And he goes, well, I want that one then. And it's like, Dad doesn't play guitar. This is out of left field. And so Dad bought the Les Paul and a little amp and things, and then he played it once, and I played it a bunch. He wanted something to take care of himself or give himself an activity to do when he was having a surgery and recovering from that. And never really picked it up, but I did, and now it's become my everything as I am surrounded by guitars, because this room isn't really set up to honestly hold all of the guitars, because I've got, if you include the basses, 16 still. So it's going to be a video, folks. But anyway, so started with that Les Paul Special 2. My parents were divorced, so I only got to play when I was at Dad's house, which is a bummer. So my mom ended up getting me a Fender Starcaster, which was the Fender still branded, but worse than a Squire somehow, Strat, kind of, and I played the crap out of it, and I annoyed the crap out of my mom, I'm sure, with that. I remember her coming down and like, it doesn't need to be at 10 at 11 o'clock, and, you know, being a little shithead teenager and all that. However, quickly kind of grew past the capabilities of those instruments, because they were like, it's not that you can't play good things on them, but they were instruments that fought you a lot. And so I was looking to get something a little bit more. So I ended up getting an Epiphone SG in the summer that I started learning guitar, like 6 months afterwards. I saved up all my money and whatever, went out and bought this little Epiphone SG. And it was a good guitar for what it was. But I played the crap out of that, and really, really deep dive on the channel. There are some videos that are privated that I could probably post for the Discord on the main channel, maybe for members only or something. But they're like 2009, 2010 era heist guitar covers that are pretty bad. So we could get into that if you want to see what beginner guitar player heist is like. It was the 1966 reissue G400, and I bought it specifically because it had the block or trapezoid inlays. I've never liked the dots. I don't know why. I grew up watching footage of the rock gods like Jimmy Page and everyone playing, so the trapezoids always felt home and the dots didn't. So I specifically wanted that, and I wanted an SG, and I was getting into AC/DC really hard then, and it was awesome. The day after I saw AC/DC, my first concert, I went out and bought an SG, and I was just ready to be Angus Young. Sold. And very quickly, about a year maybe into owning that guitar, it was falling apart. The cheaper electric guitars like that, they don't have good quality electronics and hardware in the fit and finish and all that stuff. And so like the screws stripped out of the back plate, the output jack on the guitar came undone like a million times. And the guitar lived with the back plate off so that I could resolder or fix the wires on the jack because I didn't know what Loctite was because I was 15. And this thing wouldn't stay together. So I remembered going back to that same Best Buy and plugging into a Gibson for the first time. And I suppose I can grab... This is not that Gibson, but this is my first Gibson. And this is a special guitar. And this actually has a whole video on the main channel from many moons ago, but I remember doing this and it just went click like that, and the Epiphone was just the sloppiest garbage the whole time. And I did that and I was like, yeah, I need one of these. And so I was saving all my pennies, and at the time Gibson made a special faded version that had the dots, not the trapezoids. But it was only like $700, and that Epiphone I bought was like $400. So like $700 seemed like it was attainable. So I was saving as much money as I could. All I wanted was just that. And then my mom, of course, comes out of the woodwork and surprises me Christmas morning with this 2008 Gibson SG Standard. She woke me up early and everything, and just like we just had our own little Christmas moment, just me and her. With the guitar case shaped present that, of course, she wrapped and everything, hidden behind the couch. And I remember seeing the case and opening the case, expecting the special faded, but then to be greeted by the standard with the trapezoids and everything is one of my favorite memories. And then she said something to the effect of, yeah, I'm going to need all of the money that you've been saving for it for part of it, but I figured I'd get you started. And it was like, don't care. That's great. Sounds great. So thank you, Mom. She puts up with still. It doesn't have to, thankfully, on a daily basis with the 11 and the super loud anymore, at least. But she put up with, yet still supported me having Marshall amps and 412 cabinets and being a loud pain in the ass like all through my teenage years. So, yeah, she's a great mom. Anyway, so this guitar's been my everything. We'll kick on the amplifier so we can sound a little rock and rollish. All right, got that out of the way. So this guitar has been through everything with me. Love this guitar. Went to college with this guitar. Many different mental health adventures and things, and growing up and learning and depression and all that stuff. And this piece of wood has always kind of been at my side. So it's an important guitar. Yes, it's just another Cherry SG Standard, and that's whatever, but very important to me, and it's mine, and I know all the little stupid little nicks and dings and whatever that I've put into it. The one back scratch that it has from buckle rash, despite the fact that I never really played it while wearing a belt. Not sure how that happened, but been through a couple new nuts. Somebody knocked it over in college and broke the D tuning peg, so the D tuning peg is not original. I had to get a replacement, and that like ruined my chi for like 2 weeks in college when I was a freshman. But it's pretty much original. The volume pot name keep falling off, and I've replaced the knobs and whatever. But the biggest thing is it's got a new pickup. I always hated the 498T pickup that it came with in the bridge. Love the neck pickup. Super sweet on this guitar. But the bridge pickup was always kind of harsh and weird. And so it's got a Solo Dallas T-top replica in it. And it's one of my favorite sounding guitars now. So we'll make a little noise, I guess, again. That's a lot of reverb. Yeah, that T-top just screams Angus. I would play AC/DC, but they would get mad over copyright stuff because they're the worst about it. But yeah, neck pickup, when we're talking sweet. We need less gain though. And that amp is still stacked on 10, so we can... It's a great guitar. Loved this guitar for a long time. So that's like the first guitar that I still keep with me is this one. Maybe someday I will go and get the Starcaster from Dad's house. Or not the Starcaster, the Les Paul Special 2. Maybe someday I shall put the Starcaster back together. The early engineer in me in college disassembled it because it was fun to take it apart, and then I never ended up putting it back together, and that was a bit of a stupid thing, but anyway. The next guitar is not a guitar, but it is a bass. And... don't cause a guitar avalanche. Don't do it. I did not have a decent place to put all these. I don't have my... I normally have some big wall hangers set up, and I haven't bothered to put them up in this place because I wasn't sure how long I was going to be here, and I didn't want to deal with patching all the drywall and stuff. But this is my Squier Jazz Bass. This is the number 2. You know, might as well get a bass next. I started like recording and doing like whole band covers of stuff like in 2010, early on in my playing career, because it was like, well, I already play drums, I play guitar. I was playing a Croatian bass at the time, so I could use that as the bass, and then that was kind of jank, and so on quickly came a cheap bass, and I've just recently replaced it at the end of this tour. I've got a Fender bass that I use nowadays. This one has always had some weird electronic funk going on with it, and I was thinking about playing it, but honestly, it sounds so farty and weird that we won't even bother. Anyway, but yeah, it's and the fit and finish has always been really bad on it. Like it did the thing for me when I needed a bass. It was perfect, and I was trying to put those things together, but like the frets try and cut you because the neck shrunk and everything, and the frets needed to be recrowned, and the action has never wanted to get in a good place, and the pickups are weird, and the controls go from wet fart to dry fart. It's a strange thing. That and the G tuning peg is always trying to fall off, which is a fun vibe. And so that's some of the stuff you run into with the lower level instruments, like the Squier stuff. They are very playable instruments, and you can get through gigs and stuff with these. So I'm not trying to knock them, but when you've got the means to get to something else, there's a reason why. But definitely for over a decade, this is the bass on all my music. This is the bass on the Rollin' album. This is the bass on all of the Railroads Online soundtrack, is this bass. I just like a month ago replaced it with the Fender. So anyway, starting going there. So many of you who probably play guitar are probably sitting there going, he's only talked about electric guitars. Does this guy have an acoustic guitar? Well, he didn't for like the first 4 years I played. It was electric everything, which is not the best way to learn. If you're learning guitar, it's way better to learn on an acoustic because you get better techniques, because electric can hide a lot of the stuff. It can really, yeah, you could cheat a lot on electric and get away with a lot of bad finger positions and stuff that do not work on an acoustic. So you develop your technique and skills and finger strength much better on an acoustic than you do on an electric. Obviously you can learn on electric. I did. But I had lots of little bad habits that I had to correct as I started to learn on acoustic as well. And so next up is a very sad thing. And she'll probably be very sad to see this. This is another one from Mom. It was my high school graduation present. She said, you're going to college, you need an acoustic guitar. And it is an Oscar Schmidt acoustic by Washburn. So it's an off-brand Washburn. Washburn already kind of being an off-brand. But it was a challenging time in the family and everything. And the fact that Mom went out of the way to do this was like a huge deal for me. And I love this guitar. It's a very cheap guitar, but it sounded good and it played okay. It's a little folk acoustic, so it's super skinny, but I mean, it sat with one string broken and everything for a long time because the bridge has been peeling. Colorado was not kind to this guitar when I first moved out here, And the neck, again, shrunk, so the frets would try to cut you. As you'd slide up, you'd get little micro cuts in your skin. And the bridge started to peel. And it, like, needs a lot of luthier work, which is what they call guitar makers and guitar fixers. It's, like, one of the most badass terms that you don't get to hear in general public. What are you? Oh, I'm a luthier. It sounds like some Dungeons and Dragons shit. Like, do you have a quest? The luthier? Yeah. Guitar people, but I can't really play much for you on it because it's very sad, but I don't know. Vaguely in tune. It's already like losing tension from the bridge. That's even like C standard. It's so detuned to try and just hold any pitch. So I'll keep it. It's my first acoustic. It's I wish it wasn't such a piece of junk. And maybe someday when I can spare probably $200 on a $50 instrument, I will go get it fixed. But that's that. Okay. So next up, after the Oscar Schmidt, is another acoustic, because I had been writing and dreaming and like wanting a 12-string for a long time. So I went after a 12-string. And so we featured this guitar on the channel once, but this 12-string was next. Yeah, I had been writing songs, and like Tuesday Sunrise was one of them a million years ago. And I was like, oh, that would sound pretty on a 12-string. Like I remember watching my music teacher in grade school pull out the 12-string once and being like, they make a 12-string, and then of course lots of Zeppelin tunes using it. And the timbre of a 12-string is just pretty. So this is a Yamaha 712, I think. FG720S12. If you want a cheap acoustic guitar or a cheap 12-string, like this is the one to get. It's like a $300 guitar, and it is kick-ass. It way punches above its weight class. Don't drunkenly play it at your buddy's bachelor party, though. That's how you get it damaged. But I mean, maybe you don't care because it's a $300 acoustic guitar. But love this thing. Many tunes have been written on this one. Yeah, the timbre of a 12-string with reverb is like one of my favorite things in the whole world. So very inspirational. Good guitar. Obviously, we've got recent new songs that some people really like with it. Those of you who know. Okay, so after the Yamaha Acoustic 12, comes the guitar that was right next to it. This is my second electric guitar. This is the first time I had like two electric guitars and I wasn't like, oh, I hate that one kind of thing. Because I ended up selling the Epiphone SG, and I never really played it after I got the Gibson. I never had like two. Like, I started playing in a band called Beerfinger. Such a stupid thing. Band called Beerfinger in college, like 2015, 2016. Oh, this is not in tune. And we were doing gigs, and it was like I was breaking strings in rehearsals and stuff, and it's like I should probably get a second electric guitar just in case. So I got this, and this is an Ibanez Artcore. I think it's an AF55. It just played really nice. It was cheap at Guitar Center. Thought it was cool. And yeah, it was my backup guitar for a long time. It's fun, and I actually ended up playing it a bunch too, because it was a good like party guitar, because it's a hollow body, so there's F holes and the inside is totally hollow, so it's actually decently loud unplugged. But it's not as loud as an acoustic guitar, so you're not like blowing people out of the water. You could sit there and be playing whatever, and people would be enjoying it rather than being, totally overcome at like some sort of get together or something. The fun thing about this, though, was I grew to stop playing it quickly because the bridge is a floating bridge. And so that means that the bridge can just move. It's only held in place by tension. And when you're sitting there being blues rock guy, and I was using really light gauge strings, usually because I like light gauge strings, the bridge would move and you'd go way out of pitch or way out of tune. And I finally figured it out, and so I'd be like doing a bend, and I'd hear it go out, and I'd slap the bridge. And somebody had a video of me doing that at one point. It was funny with Beerfinger, but it's like my sister's got this great clip of us playing one of our favorite blues songs live. It was a weird blues version of Bang Bang, and I am just out of tune. Like this guitar, the bridge wandered in like the first chord, and it just like. Other people don't hear it, but it gives me like nails on a chalkboard, and I can't watch it. So I didn't like that. So I eventually had a luthier put some double-sided tape on and just tape the bridge in place, which fixed that. But that was after I had a couple other guitars and things, and so I didn't play it too much. But I ended up doing a modification to it, as you can see. Malcolm Young of AC/DC, big AC/DC fan, would sometimes play a Gretsch White Falcon, which is a big honkin' single cut hollow body, kind of like this one. You can see it in the Back in Black music video. Angus and Malcolm are like itty bitty. They're like 5 feet or 5'2" or something. They're little dudes. And so Malcolm with this big single cut, I mean, the guitar is bigger than he is, and he's sitting there just rocking it. Anyways, I don't need to get a copyright strike here. But knowing that he did that, Solid Ellis came up with this Gretsch pickup. And this is actually the first Solid Ellis pickup I bought. And so I bought it. I was like, oh, that would be great in this guitar. And this could kind of be my Malcolm guitar. And so I fit it with 12 gauge strings, which is basically rebar. And that Gretsch pickup. And this is going to be my, oh yeah, we're going to play rhythm guitar with this thing. And so I used it for a lot of recording stuff, and it's a beautiful pickup. But as you can see, I didn't realize that the Gretsch mounting arrangement is different than the normal humbucker mounting arrangement. So I just zip tied that boy on there. And so it's kind of a little bit out of phase, but it's fine. It's been fine. I've recorded music with this. It's okay. This is actually the guitar, the slide guitar on Hellbot's Broken Man. That's the only thing that I know that's released that this guitar is for sure on. I did a bunch of demos with it, but it's cool because the Gretsch pickups are really bright, really like bright, like really a lot of treble, a lot of higher end. So goodness, and very quiet as well. So that's that guitar. That's a cool one. Let's see. Oh, so the next one is one that I don't have anymore. And I don't have it anymore for good reasons. So there's part of me that's like, oh, but it was so pretty, but I don't know. We'll talk about it. Let me put the stay. Okay. So the next guitar that I had, that I got after this, was like the first guitar I saved up for and was like, it was a big thing. I bought a Gibson totally myself, and it was a Les Paul. If you watched some of the early stuff on the channel, it was the blue Les Paul that I have. It was a 2013 Gibson Les Paul Traditional. And I always, when I was younger and I was into the SG and everything, hardcore, I was like, everyone's got a sunburst Les Paul. I don't want a sunburst Les Paul. I want a blue Les Paul. So I got this blue burst Les Paul. And I got it, and I immediately understood why nobody bought them, because they look black underneath normal lighting. Like, you need stage lights to make it look pretty. And so it doesn't look as pretty as it was in most of the videos and stuff it's in early on the main Heist channel. And I bought it, and it had a chonky 50s profile neck. It had good pickups. Actually, all of the rhythm guitars on the Rollin' album, every single rhythm guitar part, save for like a couple, were done with that guitar. Because it had great sounding pickups. They were 57 classics. Good guitar. But Hellbot stuff rolls around and whatever, and we're going around playing rehearsals. I'm always bringing different guitars and stuff, and we went to the studio to record, and I'm like, I'm going to bring every guitar. Whatever sonic option, you never know what's going to be cool. That Les Paul was cool for the Rollin' thing. Maybe it'll be cool. And Tristan, our singer, comes up to me and he goes, "Holy crap, dude, is that a new guitar?" And I was like, "No, I've had this guitar for 7 years." And it's like, we had been playing together as a band for like 8 months. And not once in 8 months did I bring that blue Les Paul to rehearsal, and I'm bringing 2 guitars every time. Okay, I'm not playing this thing, and it's a nicer guitar. I could probably sell it and make some cash and get a different guitar. Because it didn't spark joy anymore. It was a good guitar. I was very excited to have it, and it sounded good. But I learned, and these are things you learn as a player over time. You kind of learn the instrument and the feel and the little details and what fits you. The 50s profile neck on the Gibson's really thick, and I don't like a thick profile neck. It really cramps my hand up when I'm trying to play bar chords and stuff, and I fight the instrument, and I don't like to fight the instrument. Some people do. One of my favorite guitar players in Seattle is a guy named Tony Abreu, and I played his rig and played his guitars, and his guitars are hard to play. And he's like, "Oh, dude, I live for the fight. I gotta fight the instrument to get something out of me." And I'm like, "That's great for you, man. I'm glad that works for you. I'm glad you got that thing, and it's that mojo thing, and you're fighting the instrument on stage. That's great. I prefer mine to do what I want it to do." So, every player is a little different. So he likes one that's a little harder to play, and I don't. So ultimately, I ended up selling that guitar after I realized we didn't end up using it for the Hellbot record, and it was like I never played it. It's just sitting there being a thing, and it had no special role because shortly thereafter I got another guitar with the same pickups. So we'll get into that guitar in a minute. So that guitar is gone, but the next guitar in order that I got is this obnoxious one that you see right there, right behind me, that you've probably been staring at the whole video being like, "What the hell is that?" This is my Epiphone EDS 1275. And this was kind of a Christmas combo graduation present for college from my dad. And it is an Epiphone, and it's a 12-string neck and a 6-string neck. It mimics the Gibson, which was the GDS 1275, I think, that like Jimmy Page and Alex Lifeson played, Led Zeppelin and Rush. And many, many more. Kiss used it too, and a bunch of people. But you get the timbre of both 6 strings and then 12 strings in the same guitar, and you have electronics to switch back and forth between them. These are pickup selectors over here for each neck. So this is, that pickup, whatever, same thing down here. And then you have a neck selector, both necks, bottom neck, top neck, which is a silly thing. And this guitar is just ridiculous, and I love it because it's ridiculous, and it only comes out for special things on stage. But I'd explicitly written a couple songs, such as Golden, off the Rollin' album, where I was going to need a double neck to properly play it live. Most of Golden is done capoed on the 4th fret on a 12-string, the whole intro and the rhythm parts, and then the solo is kind of like Stairways on the 6-string bit. And I've got a couple other songs that I've written since then that I have that same flavor with, like a couple that we played with Hellbot, and I brought this guitar out for a couple Hellbot shows. And you bring this thing out, and people always go like, "Oh, it's got 2 heads, man!" Like it's just a thing. I mean, it's a boat anchor. This is the heaviest freaking guitar in the world. But it's fun, and I've gotten my fair share of fun playing it. and I knew that I would have fun playing it. Like in college, because Dad gave it to me before graduation. That was a combo Christmas graduation thing. This one came up at a good deal used, and I sent it to him, and I was like, this would be hilarious. And Dad's a classic rocker, so he got into it, of course, too. But we ended up playing like covers of Hotel California, and that's got the 12-string, and we only had 2 guitarists. So I did the 12-string bit, and then when the duet for the solo came, I was doing the solo down here. So fun stuff for college gigs. Great times. We mentioned on the main channel in a Railroads Online episode a kiddie pool full of beer. Well, the kiddie pool full of beer was for a concert that my band was throwing at my house. That's how you get the entire Golden Police Department called on you. Everyone on shift. It was like 15 cop cars. It was ridiculous. Yeah, but they waited till the band was done. We played till 12:30. We ran out of beer. There was just a bunch of random people in the house, and it was like, okay, well, hopefully everyone just starts moseying because we have no more alcohol, and we're done playing. And then all the cops showed up and kicked everyone out for us and didn't give us a fine. It was great. They were just like, don't do it again. And we're like, yep, this was one for the ages. It's for the history books, man. How epic was the party? Someone called student activities office at Mines asking where the Pike House was for the concert a week beforehand because they thought it was official. Man, college was a vibe. That was fun. Anyways, hi Mom, you're probably watching this. You don't need to know about that stuff. Ah! So we closed out college with the 1275. And so we get into post-college and BNSF things, and having a real kid income means you can just buy guitars all the time. So we've gone like 8 or 9 years of playing guitar and like a couple guitars, and now all the rest of the guitars come in a very short span of time. This is my Fender Stratocaster. I say Fender because I don't know what it is. I think it was somebody's parts caster that they made. I don't know. It has Fender on the headstock, but I'm pretty sure it's a sticker. It has the Fender plate here, but that's about it. Somebody did a bunch of work making the beautiful inlay into the body there. And the body kind of looks like somebody cut out at a kitchen table from the early 2000s, kind of. And then the hardware is kind of non-standard. And then you look at the back and you realize it used to have a back plate, and the bridge anchor point is jankily screwed in there with a weird ground cable. And then you realize this is not the first neck this guitar has had, because you could see the dowel holes from a different neck. So you're like, maybe it's a Fender neck on a whatever body? I don't know. It was $300, and I was in the vain era of caring what my guitars looked like. And I've always been a Gibson guy. Love humbuckers, but I wanted something with the single pickup sound, and I was like, maybe if I find the right Strat. I don't just want a black Strat. Everyone's got a black Strat or a red Strat or whatever, and I wanted something different. And I went to the Trading Musician in Seattle, and there was this wacky, flowery, inlaid, somebody spent some time on this, I would love to know who made this guitar if you're out there, thing. And this is my Strat. This is my one Fender guitar. And I love this thing. This thing sounds awesome. Yeah. It's a great guitar. This is all over the Railroads Online soundtrack. Anytime you hear that bluesy kind of stratty sound, guess what? It's the Strat. And it was funny. I remember going to the Hellbot rehearsals, and I'd always bring the Gibsons, and it's like, this is a Gibson sound band. Like, it's a one guitar band. I've got to be the one guitar. I got to be powerful. And I'd bring the Les Paul or SG or whatever. And then I brought the Strat the one time, and it was like the first time, and we'd been jamming for like a year probably. I remember plugging it in and playing, and Bobby, the bassist, just stops, and he goes, "Dude, that thing's got mojo, man. When'd you get that?" And it's like, oh, I've had it for a year or two. Dude, bring that more often. That thing's kick-ass. And it's like, oh, okay. So we had some tunes that we played it. I don't think it ended up on any of the first record. It's definitely going to be on the second record, but the second record's kind of, we'll see what happens-ish. So that's that thing. After that comes a very important guitar. And we just went over this in the last video. Of course, we made it through my first year or first half year, I guess, at BNSF. And I got a bonus, and we talked about it last time. My Taylor 1110 CE single cut acoustic. And this has been like, this is the family dog. This is the guitar lying on the couch that you just pick up and play all the time. It's just a fantastic acoustic guitar. Sounds great. Elixir strings on it, so it rings really good. Written a lot of songs on this. Any acoustic guitar that's not the 12 string or the dobro, coming up soon, on the soundtrack was this. It's an awesome acoustic. You could sit there and play that for hours. After the acoustic is one of my absolute favorite guitars, and it is in such a dire need of a setup. I'm so bummed. I haven't played it really much recently. It's one of my, I mean, it was my number one guitar. It might still be if I go and get it set up, but the action is so bad since I came to Colorado. I hate playing it right now. But this is my Gibson SG Supreme from 2005. It has, like, it's hard to see. It's just like that Les Paul was, where it's got this beautiful tiger stripe flame maple top, but you really need a lot of lighting to see it really prettily. And I heard about these guitars and I was like, that's beautiful. I need one. And I remember I was like midway through my career at BNSF, drunk off my ass at home, and I remember seeing one come up for sale for cheap. Like, these normally went for like $2,500 to $3,000, $2,500 to $3,000, and it's like, that's a lot of money. I don't think I'll ever be able to get one of those. You know, it'd be a long time. And one came up for like $1,500, and I was like, I was hammered, and I was like, I should buy that. I should buy that. And I was like, nope. Be a good, responsible drunk person. Do not make a drunk purchase on a guitar. Think about it. Maybe buy it in the morning. Woke up, hungover. Still wanted to buy the guitar. Bought the guitar. It was on Reverb, used listing. I click the send button, send my payment, get a phone call right away, and it's the dude, and he's like, "Oh my god, dude, I just sold that in person. I was literally taking the listing down, and your payment came through. Like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to refund you. I literally don't have the instrument." And I was like, but no, it was the one. So super bummed. Decided to look on Craigslist on a whim, despite having never seen any in the Seattle area. And what is there but this guitar? And it was listed at $1,000 because it has the Gibson problem that many Gibsons do. Somebody dropped it and broke the headstock off, and so it's been repaired. And that devalues Gibsons for collectors and whatever. I don't care. I'm here to play it. I love the guitars. It doesn't need to be a museum piece for me. And so I was like, it's $1,000. It's that's cheaper than the red SG, the other one that I already have is, and it's supposed to be kick-ass, beautiful blue and everything. So I went and played it, and the guy was like, yeah, I was thinking about refinishing it. I don't know, I don't like the blue. And I'm like, oh, whatever, I don't know what's wrong with you, dude. But played it, it's kick-ass. I mean, it's got a super skinny neck all the way up. It's 24 frets. Most SGs are only 22. So you have all this access up here all the way up top when you're really feeling like being a lead guitar douchebag. And the neck is just super fast on it. I mean, it's the easiest playing guitar when it's set up. I need to get that taken care of. 57 classic pickups, so the same pickups as the blue Les Paul, and it was like, okay, we got the red SG, the blue Les Paul, blue SG, and the joke to me was like, well, now I gotta get a red Les Paul, and we'll have one of each kind of thing. But I love it with the extra binding around the headstock. It's really pretty. I went through and I added the gold hardware. It did not have gold Grover tuners. It had silver tuners, gold strap buttons I added, and then the gold pickup covers, bridge, and the stop bar tailpiece. And then I added the pickup, or not the pickup, the pick guard as well, because I don't like SGs without the pick guard. I actually prefer the full batwing that comes up there, but for the 24 fret guys, they only make the little one, and I was fine with that vibe. But this guitar is all over Hellbot everything. This is my #1 guitar through Hellbot. I mean, this is my go-to stage guitar. And it's in an open tuning. Right. I probably last played a Hellbot tune in it. God, I mean, you can bend this thing for days. Even it's got a garbage setup right now, and you're... Oh, I need to go... I don't like to set up my own guitars. It's just one of those things. I don't have a good workbench or anything set up for it. And it takes a fair bit of time, and I'm just not really great at getting it right. And there's something so satisfying about picking your guitar up from the luthier and being like, oh yeah, it just plays kick-ass now. And I just need to go take it to get set up, because the action is super high at the high end up here, and it drives me nuts. But this is such a good guitar. I really need to get it back into service. Because it would still probably be my #1 guitar. The neck on this thing is just the best. It's just fantastic. So after the SG Supreme comes quite another banger. Man, I had a good year that year. I really shouldn't have bought this guitar. This is my 2019 Gibson Les Paul Custom Chicago Music Exchange exclusive R0. So it's a reissue of the exact 1960 Les Paul specs Les Paul. I was on a business trip with BNSF, learning all things about the Chicago area and getting set up to present to corporate bigwigs and vice presidents and things. And I'd never been to Chicago Music Exchange, heard that it's one of the biggest music stores ever. I wanted to go see it, so I went. You walk in and they have this wall, and there's like 200 Les Pauls up on this wall, and they're all custom shops. They're all nice. They're not like, there's not an Epiphone on the wall. There's probably not even a Gibson Standard on the wall. But I see the wall, and I saw this guitar amongst all of them. The really striking deep cherry. That's a little bit more deep cherry than they usually go. They're usually a little bit lighter than that, or the iced tea burst or a different burst. And all of the 60s and 50s Les Pauls that remain this long, all the cherries faded. So you don't really see this too terribly often exactly to that deep color. And then the top on it is just, I mean, it's one of the, I think it is the highest grade maple top you can get on a Les Paul. And it was just striking. And I went up and looked at it, and I was like, that is the prettiest Les Paul I've ever seen. And the guy comes over and he goes, you want to play it? And I go, no. Like, I can't afford this. I don't even know how much it costs, and I know I can't afford this. It's another open tuning. And he goes, I'll just get it down for you. He takes me into one of the little rooms and lamp room, and I play it. And it's like, it's got a very similar neck profile to that blue SG that I'd been learning that I'd loved at that time. So it's way better than the blue Les Paul I had. Super skinny, fast. It played great, felt great. It speaks to you. Like, you pick up any old instrument, it's like, okay, it's a guitar. Some of them you pick up and it's like, there is some electric magic in this that speaks to me, and I know not what it is. And that was this guitar. That's most of my guitars. That's the reason I hang on to them. They've always had some kind of magic to them. And I played the guitar, and I tried playing jazz chords with a super gainy, muddy setup, and it was just crisp. The pickups were beautiful. Sounds great. Feels great. It's just like, I stare at the tag, and it was like $5,500 used before tax. It's like, oh my God, can't possibly buy that, you know, like, that's ridiculous money. And the guy comes in and he goes, what do you think? And I go, I think I can't afford it, but I wish I could. And he goes, we have a 1-year interest-free layaway or program like that. It's just like, and I literally told him, you son of a bitch, how dare you? And he goes, I'll go get the paperwork. Signed it up, and I qualified for enough that I was able to, you know, put like $1,000 down and then have to pay off the rest of it in a year. Otherwise I'd suffer the interest. And I did, thankfully. The BNSF job, as crappy as it was, it did pay a fair bit, which was nice, but I can't say I recommend it. But this thing, man. Yeah. I have a hard time saying that a Les Paul is my number one, just because I really don't like when you try and get up here and play in solo lead guitar douchebag land. It's really hard because your thumb hits the body and the neck joint up there. Like, you really struggle to get up there, and like the SG is a better design, I think. But I mean, this thing, the sustain, a solid chunk of mahogany, and it weighs like 10 pounds. I mean, yeah. Great sounding guitar. The pickups are great. The next guy, it's it was a hefty sum to pay for it, but I mean, I have never seen a Les Paul more beautiful than this one. And anytime someone shares a picture of theirs or something, I'm smitten with mine still. It's been 4 or 5 years at this point, and I'm still smitten with that guitar. Every time I see somebody else play it, I'm just like, holy shit, that is the prettiest Les Paul I've ever seen. And it's mine. I got lucky and I was in the right place and I could do it. So Love that guitar. It's I don't think it's as number one as the Blue SG is, but man, yeah, it's a kick-ass guitar. So after the Les Paul, I did a brief adventure into 7-string land. I bought a Schecter Banshee 7-string because I thought it would be cool to have a little bit heavier stuff for Hellbot, and quickly learned that a 7-string was not for me. You add a 7th string on the low end, and it makes the neck a little fatter, but turns out I indexed all of my chords off my thumb, and so my whole frame of reference was ruined. And anytime I tried to rely on muscle memory to play that guitar, I would play the wrong chord. And I could not stand it, and the neck was too wide. And there's some people who like 7 strings, 8 strings, that's their thing. They play these extended range guitars, and that's like their whole sound. And a lot of modern, like crazy guitar players, that's where they're going. And that's like the new avenue for guitar. My interface with guitar lies firmly in dad rock. So it was not for me. So I bought it, played it a couple times, did a couple rehearsals with Hellbot with it, and it was like, I can't stand this. And so it ended up getting sold. So, but after that came a guitar that many of you guys will know the sound of intimately. And that is my Epiphone Dobro Hound Dog Deluxe. This is a dobro. Actually, it's not a true dobro. It's not like a square neck dobro where you play it with a bar or a slide and you play it like a lap steel almost. You can still play this like a guitar. It's got a round neck. It's still easily played like a normal guitar, which is what I like about it. But it's got a very unique timbre because the bridge actually sits on a special kind of speaker cone. If you can look in there and maybe see it. It's hard to see, but it basically sits on there, and they're called a resiphonic guitar. And so some of them have metal bodies. This one's got a wood body, and then the metal piece for the resonation, and then the actual speaker cone is kind of like a metal thing. But it has a very unique sound. And when I started to do the Railroads Online soundtrack, I'd played my buddy Norm's dobro, which is a true super high action, like you play this with a bar and lap steel like kind of dobro. And I was like, this is not for me. I can't play like this. Wings and Strings is a god and can play that sort of stuff. Like, nothing, but that's just way outside my wheelhouse. So I found this one. It's like, it's guitar. It's guitar that sound like dobro. I can do this. And so it'll sound probably pretty familiar to you. And I love this guitar. I don't play it enough. It sounds like somebody heard it. That's the feel. Like, this guitar's been through some stuff, and it's got a kind of sad sound for some stuff, but it's immediately should spark some interesting things. And then you pair it with slide, of course, and then it's just magic. Yeah, so that one should be very familiar to you guys. So one of my role models on guitar is my buddy Brad Steenrod of Van Epps, which ended up kind of forming Hellbot. Van Epps, the rhythm section, the guitars and drums and bass ended up making the drums and bass for Hellbot. Van Epps, kick-ass Seattle band. And Brad, I mean, he's my guitar brother from another mother. If you're out there, Brad, I doubt you're watching this, but busy with a child and things. If you're watching this, love you, buddy. But Brad always plays a Firebird these days. I remember coming back from college and seeing Brad with this thing, and I'd never heard of a Gibson Firebird before, let alone seen one, and it's like, he has this white one and it's cool. And it's like, that's a cool guitar. And so early COVID, I came across this one on Reverb. And I'd seen one before for sale once with the trans red finish. So you could see the wood grain. It's not a metallic finish. Most of the Firebirds are a metallic finish, but this one isn't. It's got the wood grain and it's super pretty. I'd seen one of these once before, and it got sold super quick. And I was like, man, if I see one of those again, I want one. A couple of years go by, and didn't see one until this one popped up. And it was a good price, and it was a little more than I wanted to spend, so I offered the guy like 3/4 of what he posted it for, and he accepted the offer, and I was like, oh shit, I'm buying a guitar now. So I love this thing. This thing also, internet buy, lucked out on having a great neck, just kind of like the other two Gibsons we've shown, the blue and the red. The blue SG, the red Les Paul. Firebird sounds awesome, and I love the paint scheme of the Firebird 7. I mean, it's very Iron Man, red and gold, kind of hot rod vibe all the way across. Super cool. Big block inlays and stuff, and it's just... The mini humbuckers are a little different than a normal humbucker. They have almost kind of a Strat quality to them. Really cool timbre, and I've used it for a lot of different stuff. Actually, the whole song Form Be in Place is just this guitar, all the guitar pieces. The interesting thing to me, though, with this, it's a Firebird 7, which is the custom of the Firebirds. It has 3 pickups, but the middle selection on the selector is both these 2 pickups. So you get a weird out-of-phase thing, and it sounds almost just like a Strat. Which is just strange, but fun. And I like that because it's a Gibson scale length. The length of neck on a Gibson and Fender is a little different. And I like the Gibson. It's a little shorter and faster, and it feels like home. So it's cool to get that kind of sound out of a Gibson. And the Firebird's just a vibe. I mean, such a wacky shape. Very ergonomic because, I mean, it's kind of like the SG. You can get all the way up there really easily. And just a fun guitar. And connection with my buddy Brad. So that's that one. And I love it's got the Vibrola, this tailpiece, which is kind of an early Gibson tremolo for changing pitch. It's not very good. They're not good. They look super cool. I've always loved the big tailpiece Vibrolas, one of my favorite looks. But they are not great sonically or for tuning stability either. So can't recommend one. But speaking of that, I got another guitar with one of those. And this guitar, this is one of my most recent ones. We're almost to the end of the list, I promise. And this guitar was a product of being in the right place, right time on the internet, looking at things. And this guitar has a story that it would tell you. I would love if wood could speak. I've always loved older SGs like this, with the big tailpiece, the vibe. Like, this is like early Angus kind of vibes. And they're a million, like, they're super expensive. For like a nice quality one from the 60s or 70s, it's like almost $10,000 depending on. So they're expensive because they're vintage and it's this whole thing and it's a guitar market and whatever. And this one popped up and it was like $3,000. It's like, it's not no money, but for one of these, that's really low. And it's like, well, why? Okay. This is a guitar that got restored. Somebody molested this guitar. I mean, it had the headstock broken and it had a bad repair, and the guy actually repaired it properly. So the headstock's repaired, and you can see that it had different tuners, and these are non-stock tuners. Who knows what happened to the actual Gibson logo? Somebody neck through'd it at one point, like it was a Strat, or not neck through, but string through, the bridge through. So the strings used to go through the body, like as a Stratocaster. Removed the big tailpiece, the pickups are gone. They put an extra hole in the pick guard for another pot, for another volume knob, and then an extra switch for reasons there. And it's like, somebody like played the crap out of this guitar and whatever. And I saw it, it's like, it's a 68 SG. I wanted a 68 because that was reportedly Angus's favorite year for SGs. Matches my GTO, 68 GTO, and Led Zeppelin started in 68. So 68 is kind of a cool year in rock and roll things for me. And so it's 68 SG, and it had all this weird stuff with it, but I don't care about that. This thing's got mojo. It's got a story. It doesn't have to be a pristine, perfect, nobody touched this since 1968. Don't even play it. Like, this thing is beat to crap, has been on the road. Like, people played this guitar. And I got it in, and I could tell why. This guitar is one of the easiest to play guitars I've ever played. Super fat. Like, it's better than the blue guitar. The reason why it's probably not as number one for me as the blue guitar is the neck profile is the most bizarre, wacky profile I've ever come across, where it feels like my normal SG down here, except skinnier. The nut width is smaller, which is weird. But then it gets very fat this way up here. Like, it's fatter than the blue Les Paul was, but it's got a different contour, so it's still comfy. But that change, I mean, it's like cowboy chord land down here is super easy. And then up here, it's like, well, it's kind of thick, but it works out and you can really solo on it. And it's got, like, the guy who restored it custom wound these pickups. And so he made these pickups. They're not like any Gibson anything. They're a little hotter than they're supposed to be. I had my guy in Seattle wire in the kill switch, which he had unwired, but I used it for Hellbot all the time because I actually broke a switch on the Blue SG playing GTO by Hellbot with that. So figured having a dedicated kill switch would be nice. And this thing is just a vibe machine. I mean, it sounds kick-ass. Like, it screams AC/DC right away. This thing, I got so lucky with this. I asked him to measure the neck before I bought it off the internet because I was worried it would be a baseball bat like the Blue Les Paul, and I knew that at that point. And the numbers made sense with my other red SG, the standard that was the first guitar we really talked about. But it ends up being so thick up here, it's ridiculous. But it doesn't bug me because the contour is different. But the thing that probably doesn't show up on camera, unfortunately, because it didn't show up in the pictures of the listing, and I don't know if it'll show up on the webcam or not. Let's see if I get it really close. You could see lots of little lines on it. Oh, you could barely see it. That is finish checking, which is like old guitar mojo. The nitrocellulose lacquer starts to break down over time, and only vintage guitars or appropriately reliced guitars have that. And it didn't show up at all in the picture. It just looked like it was a nice glossy red. So I got it out of the case and I was like, holy shit, this is beautiful. Like, it's got all of the vintage guitar kick-ass mojo. And the guy who restored it did such a freaking good job. This guitar is one for the ages. Like, I love this thing. I love the tailpiece. It's not original. Big Vibrola tailpiece. I love the vibe. I wish the tuning stability was better. If you change tunings on this, like it takes you forever because it's all just connected on that one little bar of metal, that little bent piece right there. So if you change the tension on one string, it changes the tension on all of them. It's a pile of nightmare, and like the Floyd Rose has it figured out, and this just does not. But what a vibe machine, man. I love this thing. This thing's cool. Next up after that is another interesting vibe machine. This is one I got about the last 6 months. And there's a video on the main channel about it. The Squier Baritone Telecaster. And this is, I only went for a Squier on this case because I didn't know if I was going to like a baritone. And I knew that I liked the sound of that 7-string that I bought. But I hated playing it. So a baritone is the pitch of that 7-string, but on a 6-string guitar. So the bottom of a normal guitar is right here. Right. So you go. So this thing's really cool, and it's been an inspiration machine for me because different sounds and feels and things inspire you differently. And having that extended range has made me write a bunch of different stuff. And actually the album I'm working on, there's going to be a lot of this guitar on there because I've felt really inspired with it. And the pickup choice by Squier, the two P90s, really sells it because it does the Telecaster twangy thing here. On the bridge guy, and then the neck is so sweet. Don't mind me casually playing a song that's in the wrong tuning. And the combination's like a great balance of both. Like it's a really kitted guitar, and it was pretty cheap. So it was an experiment and a gamble on, well, baritone's cool, and if I don't like it, I can just give it back to Guitar Center for cheap, you know, or like return it for, you know, no cost. And I ended up loving it. So I've written a bunch of stuff with it, and probably some Volume 2 kind of Railroadsy soundtrack stuff will involve this. So great guitar. And the last guitar, before we get into the last instrument, which is a bass, of course, but some people argue that the basses should be included, some people don't. This one also has a video on the main channel. This is my custom, which I ordered before the SG, the 68 SG, and the baritone. I went like a year after buying the Firebird, being like, don't buy a guitar, don't buy a guitar. And then I bought like 3 in a year. It's fine. But this is my Novo Ceres P2. So it's a model. It's a Ceres P2, right, by Novo, which just means that it is the Ceres body with the 2 pickups and then the Gibson style stop piece. But the specifications are custom to my guitar. There is not another guitar like this. It's got the flame maple neck, which is one of the sexiest things on a guitar ever. Shot it in blue, but over black. And then they wore through the blue so that the black shines through, which is awesome. The black pick guard, black knobs, the blocks with the white binding, the cream binding all the way around. Like, all of those things were my choices that I picked to make this guitar. I wanted it to be like, you know, an all black guitar that got refinished blue. And it came out better than I'd ever expected, and super pretty. When we went to Novo in Nashville for the first time, it was like all the YouTubers who do guitar stuff talk about them nonstop. And they're all like, oh, Novos are great. Novos are great. I'm like, I'd never seen one I really liked. Most of the finishes are kind of like gaudy. Like the most famous one is Rhett Shull's, and it's like pink and gold and obnoxious and gigantic, and it's like, that is an ugly guitar. But he plays it in every video. It's like, why? And so I went to Nashville and went in to go see the shop and whatever, picked one up and just went, and was like, oh, because Unplugged, I mean, this is one of the loudest Unplugged guitars I have because it's made out of a special tempered pine. It's really super lightweight, super resonant. So it's a really, really cool, beautiful sounding guitar. The pickups are great. The work that they do on the guitars is great. I mean, I could rave about this thing for years. I mean, it's one of the nicest feeling guitars. And it's got 22 frets and a Gibson scale length, which is a thing they just recently started doing. So... One of my favorite things is this neck pickup. It's just like super creamy, lush. It's a little high up there for tertiary harmony. It's fine. But yeah, absolutely beautiful guitar. Love the way it sounds. Love the way it plays. I've got a second Novo on order. I got this one and I waited about 4 months and put another one in order. So maybe late this year, maybe a Christmas present to myself, I guess. A Vulture shall arrive, and it'll be very Bumblebee flavored. But this is, yeah, I love this guitar. It's a good one. And that's the last guitar. And then, of course, the most recent thing was the bass that was aforementioned many, many minutes ago at the beginning of this. It's probably going to be the longest video on this channel. Hopefully I haven't bored you all to death. But people keep asking about all the guitars, so here you go. Here's this green obnoxious thing. They were green! It is a Fender Player Plus series precision bass. So the other bass is jazz bass, which means it has different pickups. This is actually technically a PJ, because this is the precision bass pickup, and then this is the extra J pickup. The jazz bass normally has 2 of these. And then this has the precision bass pickup, which is kind of like a humbucker, and then the extra jazz. So you get a lot of tonal options with it. And the fit and finish on this, like, this is so crisp and beautiful. Actually, now it's actually adjusted to Colorado and the frets need to be dealt with, which is really annoying, actually. I haven't played it in a minute, and ooh, yeah, that's Colorado, man. Why you gotta be dry? So that'll have to be dealt with, but I'll get it set up and get it taken care of. But super smooth. The electronics are great, and it does the bass things. I would plug it in, but I'd have to figure out how to get a bass amp sound and stuff and things and words, and that's going to take me an eon to figure out while on camera, so... Yeah. It's awesome. I mean, I'm not a bass guy, but it's a nice bass. And I can play it. And it's got tonal things, so I'll be able to do album things without issues and more soundtrack things. So anyways, that's probably, God, I've probably been talking for like an hour. Probably more than an hour. I have no idea. Hopefully it was fun. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing all of the guitars and little stories and things. Maybe I could condense it down if I feel like editing stuff, but that's not the point of this channel. So anyways, thanks for watching.